What I've Become. Written by Night Breeze. Read by No One and Nobody. Chapter 12.
Lieutenant Tallon, status report on the Caliban if you please.
Captain Hazalk ordered as he settled more comfortably into his chair.
The Caliban has made planetfall, and our extraction and recovery teams are making their way to their various targets. Sergeant Verlo and his team has already made it to the crash site and has reported that the site is currently infested with what appears to be the native populace, while Sergeant Cassianan is still en route to Signal Site Beta,
the lieutenant said as she input a few commands into her console.
That could prove problematic. Order Verlo to observe for now. At least until we get a measure of these creatures. What of Sergeant Inaz?
He asked as he stroked his mandibles.
Team Zen reported that they traced the personal locator to a cave in the woods at the foot of the mountain. They are awaiting your orders before they enter, though Sergeant Inaz wanted you to know that something didn't feel right about the situation. He also said that the locator's signal isn't transmitting an IFF that he recognizes,
Talion said as she swiveled her chair to face the captain.
Throw the marker's signature and data onto my datapad. I want to see it myself,
Hazalk said as he picked up the datapad sitting on his upper right armrest.
Definitely marked as a friendly. Though, why does the information on the IFF say classified? In fact, all I'm getting is a name.
The captain thought to himself as he perused the non-existent information on the datapad. The name didn't tell him a whole lot, but it did tell him enough to know that he needed to call in someone with a higher pay grade before he sent his soldiers into danger.
Agent Illisk, this is the bridge. We've been able to track down the only survivor of the crash. My men have gotten close enough to receive IFF information, but haven't made contact with the survivor yet, due to the nature of the IFF he received. Everything but the name is classified. Would you care to explain?
Captain Hazalk said after pressing down on the intercom button at his armrest.
What is the name?
He heard the spook say over the intercom.
Subject 38. Hope that means more to you than it does to me,
Hazalk said.
It does, Captain. You haven't found a survivor. Rather, you have found one of the experiments that the science team were working on. Please transmit the information to me. I need to have a look at it.
Hazalk heard the spook on the other side say.
What kind of experiments are we talking about here? You haven't exactly told us what we're dealing with here,
Captain Hazalk asked, apprehension creeping into his voice as he sent the data to the spook.
1 second, Captain. Let me decode this first,
he heard in response. The silence seemed to drag on forever, only further compounding the captain's growing concern. Finally, the intercom buzzed to life again.
Captain, due to the nature of the information that I've received, I feel that it is necessary to warn you about extracting this specimen. Be sure to alert your troops of this as well. The experiment that you've located is a highly unstable, yet highly valuable genetic and cybernetic augmentation experiment. The subject is designed to strike terror into whatever it is unleashed upon, so be sure to warn your soldiers.
The captain's heart sank when he heard this.
Anything else we need to know before I send my troops into the lion's den?
Yes, the creature is extremely fast, extremely strong, can see in the dark, and will most likely become irate as soon as it sees your soldiers,
Illisk said in a matter-of-fact voice.
Why would it attack us on sight? Isn't it programmed to not attack allies?
The captain asked, a little confused at what he was hearing.
While the creature is usually more restrained, its MC unit is currently either damaged or missing entirely. It is running off of its base programming, and will most likely view anything with our particular morphology as a foe,
the agent said evasively, clearly not wanting to reveal anything more than that.
What do you mean by base programming? Shouldn't the scientists who grew the thing have conditioned with a base programming of not attacking any Kryn it sees?
The captain asked flatly.
I'm sorry, Captain, but I really cannot tell you more. It's above your pay grade. Be sure to warn your troops to watch out for the claws. but try not to kill it. More money went into the development of that thing than you and your crew will make in your entire lives.
Illisk said dismissively. Captain Hazalk rolled his eyes at this, then shut off the intercom.
Lieutenant Tellin, patch me through to Team Zen. Put their armor cams up on the view screen as well. I want to see this terror that the science team managed to cook up.
Tallien obediently did as instructed, and almost immediately the view of the planet below, complete with its physics-defying orbiting star, was replaced with 4 different viewpoints of a vibrant green forest.
Sergeant Inaz, you are clear to engage,
Captain Hazalk said.
Engage, sir?
The sergeant asked, clearly confused at the nature of the order.
The target inside is one of the science team's more twisted experiments. Usually it's on some kind of a leash. Though right now its leash is broken, and it isn't going to be very hospitable towards anyone. Expect it to be fast, strong, and very, very lethal.
The captain clarified.
Yes, sir. Anything else I should know before me and my boys head in there and kick its face in?
The sergeant asked coolly.
Yes. Try to keep it alive. Expect it to be asleep and watch out for claws,
Hazalk said dryly.
Yes, sir. Okay, boys. Shut your yaps and be quiet. Don't want to wake the blow baby now, do we?
After receiving confirmation from each of his soldiers, Sergeant Inaz led his troops to the base of the cliff that the cave was situated in. The cave's narrow entrance and higher elevation made the feat of entering difficult for a Kryn in full battle gear, but the extraction team still somehow managed it without much fuss. The cavern's much larger interior gave the extraction team plenty of room to maneuver, which would only serve the extraction team if they actually got into a fight. However, as the captain watched, he couldn't help but feel increasingly uneasy about this whole thing. He wasn't sure why, but something about the cave just seemed off to him. The cave just didn't look like the sort of place that a ravenous beast created by a Kryn's science team would hole up in. For starters, the creature had made some kind of bed out of animal hides. Not to mention that there also seemed to be a fire pit, complete with a wide assortment of cooking accessories nearby.
Something here doesn't add up,
he thought as his soldiers made their way deeper into the cave.
Maybe it found the campsite of some poor native and decided to help itself. There certainly seems to be enough skin and bones to suggest that. Looks like the previous owner was some kind of primitive trapper.
The captain shook his head to clear it of those thoughts as his soldiers made their way deeper into the cave.
No time to think about that now. Just keep your eyes open,
he thought to himself. The cave looked almost unnatural, due mainly to the flickering green quality of the night vision that had been enabled on the armor cameras. Silently, the soldiers rounded the corner, quickly bringing to view the mutant that had come to call this place home. It was hard to make out. It seemed to be lounging in a bubbly pool of water, completely unaware of its surroundings, as a faint snoring sound could be heard through the camera's speakers. Silently, each of the soldiers raised their weapons, removed the safeties, and opened fire on the creature. Captain Hazalk couldn't believe his eyes at what happened next. Somehow, against all odds, the creature came wide awake, jumped straight out of the water, and managed to dodge each and every stun blast as it dived for cover. The thing moved so fast that Hazalk couldn't even make out its form or shape. He thought it was probably bipedal, and it only seemed to have one set of arms, but other than that, he wasn't sure what he had seen.
What the? Do you see it move? Stay sharp. It might be fast, but if we keep it pinned down, we can catch it. Light it up!
Sergeant Inaz said, taking a couple of steps forward as he started to unload his weapon on the rock outcropping that the creature had taken cover behind. However, just before the soldiers opened fire, the creature jumped from cover, screeching at the top of its lungs as it barreled towards the oncoming wall of blue. It was truly a terror to behold. Pale, damp skin, black, soulless eyes, and arms and legs that seemed to go on forever. It seemed to have an emaciated frame, which belied a speed unmatched, as it dodged each of the stun blasts headed its way. Captain Hazalk could only watch in horror as it closed in, its mouth open in a snarl, as it reached out and ran Sergeant Inaz through with its foot-long claws. Captain Hazalk heard his soldiers swear as the sergeant flatlined, clearly shaken at what had happened.
The sergeant's down! Switch to plasma! Light the monster up!
he heard Corporal Vizal scream. The others did as ordered, but the creature didn't even pause for a second. The captain could only watch in horror as the creature snarled at the 3 remaining soldiers, then proceeded to use the broken body of the late Sergeant Inaz as a shield. Round after round struck the corpse, only to be absorbed by the combat armor that Inaz had been wearing. After a few seconds of this, the creature started to press forward, throwing the dead sergeant at the 3 remaining soldiers. The camera feed became jumbled after that, giving the captain only a faint understanding of what happened next. 2 things he did know, though. Private Julie was down, and Corporal Vizales had gotten a lucky shot off as the creature had made a break for the cave entrance.
Quickly, secure it while it's stunned,
Hazalk ordered as the corporal got to his feet.
Yeah, I'll secure it,
Vizales said, taking off his helmet as he calmly walked towards the sound of the screaming monster.
Vizals, put your helmet back on! Vizals!
Vizales didn't respond, though, seeing as how he had removed his helmet, and therefore his way of receiving orders. Hazalk hit one of his armrests in frustration at this, swearing as he did so.
Private Golan, Vizals has taken leave of his senses. Stop him from killing the creature.
On it.
Came the slurred reply. Hazalk noticed that Golan's camera seemed a bit shakier, making him wonder what had happened to the young private during the scuffle.
Best not to worry about that now. Just pray that he'll be there in time to stop Vizals from killing his career.
Hazalk thought as he watched the corporal take a bead on the trembling beast underneath him. Hazalk heard Vizal's sigh in satisfaction, his breath quickening as the monster closed its eyes in resignation.
Take this, you murdering piece of...
Then, just before he pulled the trigger, Vizal's camera went out, as did the audio and the entire readout of his suit. Golan's still seemed to work, though the sight it revealed was nothing short of horrifying. Private Golan seemed to be frozen in shock, as he watched lightning ground itself into Corporal Vizal's, frying him from the inside out. The crack of thunder was so loud that it blew out the microphone on all the cameras and helmets, effectively muting everything that happened afterwards. Golan rushed forward as Corporal Vizal stumbled out of the cave's entrance, the world oddly muted as he stumbled to the cave's entrance. He then laid down on his belly as he crawled out of the cave, pulling himself into a position where he could see what was happening. Underneath him, there seemed to be some kind of armored winged equine. It seemed to be reaching out for the crippled creature, almost as if it was trying to help it.
Private, if you can still hear me, remove the native from the picture. Don't say a word. The freak lightning blew out your microphone, so we wouldn't be able to hear you anyway. Just kill the native, stun the creature, and drag it and your own butt back to the landing craft.
Hazalk ordered the private. Hazalk watched as the monster pointed up towards the cave, almost as if it were warning the equine about what was about to happen.
That can't be right,
Hazalk thought, as another puzzle piece fell into his lap. His thoughts were interrupted, though, as the equine looked up in alarm, just in time to see round after round of plasma strike it repeatedly in the face, back and wings, scoring hit after hit. Only for each blast to dissipate as the armor that the native wore glowed brightly. Before Captain Hazalk could even comprehend what he was seeing, though, Private Golan seemed to pitch forward, hurtling head over heels until he struck the ground next to the fallen corporal. Captain Hazalk opened his mouth to call to the fallen private, but stopped when he saw that the private's heart had flatlined as well. Hazalk just stared at the monitor for a few minutes, his mind in shock at what he had seen.
Sir, what just happened?
Lieutenant Talion asked shakily. Captain Hazalk didn't answer at first. Instead, he stood up, straightened his coat, and pressed the intercom button on his armrest.
Agent Illisk, meet me in my ready room in 30 minutes,
he said, as if nothing had happened. He then made his way to the lift, stopping just before he opened the door to turn and look at his lieutenant.
I don't know what happened, Talion, but that wasn't a mindless terror weapon gone crazy. It was clever. It fled at the first chance it got. It attempted to warn the native before Private Golan fired, showing that it somehow made allies, despite everything going against it. In effect, it and its allies just obliterated an entire extraction team, all because we were under the assumption that it was a mindless rogue terror weapon on a rampage.
If it isn't that, then what is it?
Talion asked quietly.
I don't know, but I intend to find out,
Hazalk said as he left the bridge.
What do we have?
Dr. Tendercare asked as she entered the operating room.
Multiple third-degree burns across 60% of its back. The wounds appear to be similar to dragonfire in nature, though not nearly as severe as some of the cases we've seen,
Nurse Lifeline answered as she pushed the light closer to the creature's back.
Most of the muscle and skin were eaten away by the fire, but the organs and bones appear to be largely unaffected. We just finished cleaning the wound when you arrived. Very good. What anesthetic is it on?
Care asked as she started a level 3 medical scan.
Demon's Bane, though the sergeant who brought it in told us that he used a pain-kill stick on it a few hours ago.
Lifeline answered.
That shouldn't complicate anything. A pain-kill stick's effects only last about an hour and a half, so we should be good.
Care trailed off as she finished the scan.
What seems to be the problem, Doctor?
Lifeline asked.
I finished the scan, but I'm having trouble interpreting the data. From what I've been able to gather, the creature seems to have 2 sets of DNA.
Dr. Care said, shaking her head a little.
What will that mean for regeneration magic?
Dr. Stoutheart's voice came through from observation.
I don't know. To my knowledge, this sort of thing has never happened before, so there's no procedure for it.
Tender Care said as she began to cut away the charred flesh.
We don't even know how it will respond to regenerative magic, much less how having 2 different sets of DNA will affect the process itself. Our magic has to use the patient's DNA as the blueprint for everything it does, so I can only imagine what the spell will do. Will it latch on to one over the other? Will the magic cause the 2 to battle, killing the host? Or will it cause the patient to split into 2 separate entities? Tartarus, we're trying to use magic on an alien entity. Any number of things could happen, each one more horrifying than the last.
For what it's worth, the bodies that we examined only had 1 set of DNA. This creature seems to be exactly identical, so why would it have 2?
Dr. Heartbeat asked from across the operating table.
Not so, Beat. This creature isn't exactly identical. The ones that you and your colleagues examined were all dead. They lacked souls. And a soul can have powerful and far-reaching effects on such things as polymorphic magic.
Dr. Levelhead said from observation.
You will have to forgive me, Doctor, but transmutation isn't really my specialty,
Care said as she used her magic to stem the bleeding.
It is mine, though, and what you just described is a symptom of a polymorphed individual.
Levelhead said.
Dr. Head, if you are telling me that this thing has been hit by a transmutation spell, then you are sorely mistaken. The medical scan returned a negative for any binding magical auras holding it in this form, so it couldn't possibly be that.
Dr. Care said as a nurse used a sponge to wipe away the sweat on her brow.
Not by magic, no. However, we are dealing with an alien species that has already shown the ability to implant a variety of artificial devices into a living host, while making them work perfectly with the physiology of said host, all without magic. Isn't it possible, then, that they have discovered a way to change a living creature's DNA without magic?
Dr. Levelhead asked.
Then why would he register 2 different DNA strands? If non-magical means were used, we should only get 1.
Dr. Beat asked as he aided Dr. Care in her blood-clotting spell.
Not necessarily. When a specimen is under the effects of a polymorph spell, its DNA completely changes to match the new body it is given. The specimen's soul still remembers what it was, though, which is why a medical scan reveals 2 sets of DNA. A level 3 medical scan returns both physical and spiritual data, on the off chance that the patient is currently suffering from a shadow magic infection.
Levelhead explained.
So 1 set is the patient's changed DNA, while the other is the patient's remembered DNA? What would that do to the regeneration spell?
Dr. Beat asked pointedly.
In the case of polymorphic magic, the changed DNA always wins over the spirit DNA. This, however, is a completely new scenario. We can only speculate on what might happen were we to apply regenerative magic. For all we know, we might make things worse for it.
Dr. Levelhead said as he leaned back.
Nevertheless, we must try,
A new female voice said from observation. Dr. Care instantly recognized the voice as Princess Luna's, though Care was far too busy to even contemplate a bow at the moment.
Princess Luna! Princess Celestia! It is an honor to see you here.
She heard her colleagues in the observation booth say.
No need for formalities. You are correct in your deduction, though. The patient's current form is not his natural one, which will present some complications when applying regenerative magic. However, we must try, seeing as how we have no one who is able to donate blood or skin to aid in his recovery,
Celestia said.
She's right. I'm applying the magic now. I'd rather feel bad about something that I did than something that I didn't do.
Dr. Tendercare said as she charged her horn. If you're enjoying this reading, consider checking out the non-copyright infringement version available on Amazon Prime. See link in video details for more information.